Be me, Arthur Jenkins, 42 years old, senior financial analyst at Omni Corp. Been here 8 years. My cubicle is the same beige as the last 5 presidential administrations, but my brain, it's a labyrinth of spreadsheets and compliance documents. I know every line item, every budget code, every obscure regulation that keeps this monolithic corporation humming, or sometimes from crashing and burning. I keep my head down, provide for my wife and 2 kids, one of whom needs a pretty big surgery next year. My world is numbers, logic, predictability. Be not me, Veronica Sterling. Ronnie, VP of Operations. Fresh blood, hired 6 months ago from a boutique consultancy she practically owned. A force of nature, if nature was a Category 5 hurricane wrapped in a designer suit. She blew in, talking about synergy and disruption, but mostly she just disrupted my peace and Omni Corp's financial stability. Her first move was to restructure the procurement department, replacing seasoned veterans with her own people, then rerouting supplier contracts through a new, opaque network of shell companies. I smelled something rotten from day one. That was just the beginning of the stench. My first direct interaction with Ronnie was infuriating. She marched into my office, not even bothering with a knock, slammed a stack of invoices on my desk. They were from a vendor called OptiStream Solutions, astronomical figures for consulting services. No deliverables, no project codes, just a vague description. "Arthur," she purred, her smile not reaching her eyes. "These need immediate approval, critical strategic initiative." I picked one up. "Ronnie, there are no supporting documents, no work orders, no service agreements, and the rates are 30% above our approved vendor schedule. I can't sign off on this." Her smile vanished. "Are you questioning my judgment, Arthur? This is a priority. Sign them." "I'm questioning the lack of procedure," I replied, holding my ground. "This isn't how we do things. It flags as a high-risk transaction in the system." She leaned in, her voice dropping, sharp as a razor. "This is how we do things now, Arthur. Get used to it, or find somewhere else that operates by your antiquated rulebook." She then turned on her heel and walked out, leaving me with a stack of clearly fraudulent invoices. I sent them back to her, citing policy. 2 hours later, an email from the CFO's office, copied to my director, with a subject line that read, "Urgent expedite OptiStream payments." The invoices were approved by Ronnie, using the CFO's electronic signature access. She had a way of making it happen, regardless of procedure. The frustration was a slow, acidic burn. A month later, my team had spent weeks crunching numbers for the quarterly operational efficiency report. Complex data, deep dives, predictive modeling. It was my baby. Ronnie snatched it. She presented our findings verbatim at the executive board meeting, claiming credit for her team's innovative data analysis. She even used some of my exact phrases. The CEO praised her visionary leadership. My director and I sat through the meeting, seething silently. My team got a pat on the head and a new, even more demanding project dumped on us. Ronnie got a substantial performance bonus. My anger shifted from a slow burn to a focused heat. She was not just unethical, she was parasitic. Then she started actively trying to push me out. Late-night emails demanding irrelevant reports by morning. Micromanaging my team's every move, then criticizing their efficiency. She'd pull me into her office for status updates that were thinly veiled interrogations, trying to catch me in a mistake. One day, she cornered me in the break room, accusing me of intentionally slowing down her strategic initiatives by adhering to unnecessary red tape. She suggested I was resistant to change and perhaps not a good fit for Omni Corp's dynamic future. I saw it for what it was, a prelude to removal. She was systematically clearing out anyone who might stand in the way of her schemes. The pressure became constant. My wife noticed my long hours, the lines of stress around my eyes. I told her it was just a tough quarter, but it was Ronnie. The breaking point arrived with a memo, a proposal for operational synergy and cost optimization. It outlined a plan to outsource Omni Corp's entire internal financial analysis and reporting to an external firm. The firm was called Apex Solutions. My department, all 15 of us, out of a job. The contract for Apex Solutions was tucked into the appendix. I recognized the name immediately. Apex Solutions was owned by Ronnie's brother, Mark Sterling, a tiny, boutique accounting firm with no corporate experience, suddenly poised to take over a critical function at Omni Corp for a price tag that was literally 3 times our current department budget. And the contract offered zero guarantees of service quality. It was a bald-faced shakedown, pure, unadulterated fraud. I looked at the proposed implementation date, 3 months from now, just as my youngest child was scheduled for that critical surgery. Our health insurance, tied to my employment, was paramount. This wasn't just about my job anymore. This was about my family's well-being. This was about their health. Ronnie had crossed the line. This wasn't just irritating corporate politics. This was a direct, existential threat. That day, the slow, acidic burn in my gut transformed into a cold, hard knot of resolve. I stopped being Arthur Jenkins, the compliant analyst. I became Arthur Jenkins, the predator. I went dark. I stopped pushing back directly against Ronnie's ridiculous demands. I became the model employee, quietly complying, diligently submitting reports, even the ones I knew were going straight into her shredder. But in the background, a new initiative began. My personal, undeclared, high-stakes audit of Veronica Sterling. I used my intimate knowledge of Omni Corp's sprawling financial systems like a surgeon uses a scalpel. I knew where the cracks were, the obscure ledgers, the rarely accessed subsidiary accounts, the archaic mainframe systems that still process some legacy transactions. My 8 years of quiet observation and meticulous work paid off. I started by pulling every single invoice from OptiStream Solutions. I cross-referenced their payment dates with Ronnie's hiring date. Bingo! The first fraudulent payment started 2 weeks after she joined. Then I dug into OptiStream's corporate registration. Buried deep, shielded by layers of shell companies in different states, I found it. Veronica Sterling listed as a principal owner, using her maiden name, a clear conflict of interest in direct embezzlement. Next, I focused on Apex Solutions, her brother's company. The proposed contract was still in committee, but I had a copy. I analyzed the cost breakdown. It was pure fiction, wildly inflated. I found their corporate registration too. Not just her brother, but her husband was listed as an advisory board member, quietly taking a cut. I gathered comparative bids from legitimate, established outsourcing firms. Their prices were a third of Apex's, for 10 times the experience. I also remembered a secure internal whistleblower system. It was rarely used, designed for high-level fraud, routing directly to the independent members of the board and external auditors, bypassing internal HR entirely. It required irrefutable, ironclad evidence, or it would be dismissed. I started building my dossier. Screenshots, flagged transactions, corporate registration documents, email trails, even recordings of a few of her particularly egregious outbursts where she implicated herself without realizing it. I used my personal phone to record, then transcribed them and stored the audio off-site. I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was constructing a damn fortress of incontrovertible proof. Every single step I took, I double-checked for legal compliance. I didn't want my righteous anger to give her any kind of out. My final play before initiating the formal process was a trap. I knew Ronnie was paranoid. I accidentally left a confidential internal audit schedule open on my screen for precisely 5 minutes, when I knew she would be walking past my cubicle. The schedule detailed an upcoming deep dive into operational expenses, focusing on vendor relationships and procurement practices. It was a completely fabricated document, but it looked utterly real, a ghost in the machine. I watched her out of the corner of my eye. Her head snapped toward my screen. Her eyes lingered for a fraction of a second, then she walked faster. Hook, line, and sinker. The panic in Ronnie was almost palpable in the following days. She started demanding audits of her own department, trying to appear proactive. But I knew she was trying to find and destroy whatever she thought the deep dive audit would uncover. She started pulling physical files from archives, having them shredded. She made frantic, hushed phone calls from her office, doors always closed. She even tried to transfer a substantial sum of money from one of the OptiStream dummy accounts to a personal offshore account, hoping to drain it before anyone noticed. But OmniCorp systems were designed to flag large, unusual transfers. My internal whistleblower report, now a meticulously compiled 80-page document, was already in the pipeline, flagged as high priority. The wheels were turning. The email landed in my inbox at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mandatory meeting, CEO's office, 10 a.m. It was from the CEO's executive assistant, copied to Ronnie, HR, and crucially, 2 external auditors. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. This was it. I walked into the mahogany-paneled office at precisely 9:55 a.m. The CEO, Mr. Henderson, looked grim. HR Director Emily Thorne was stone-faced. The 2 external auditors, a man and a woman, were already seated, their expressions unreadable. Ronnie walked in at 10:01, radiating her usual arrogant confidence, a fake smile plastered on her face. She took her seat directly across from me. "Good morning, everyone," Mr. Henderson began, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. "Veronica, we've called this meeting to discuss some irregularities that have come to our attention." Ronnie scoffed lightly. "Irregularities? Mr. Henderson, my department is running at peak efficiency. Perhaps Arthur here is just upset about the upcoming restructuring." She shot me a sneer. "Actually, Ronnie," I said, my voice calm, "it's about more than the restructuring. It's about OptiStream Solutions and Apex Solutions." Her fake smile faltered. "I'm not sure what you mean. Those are legitimate vendors." "Are they?" Mr. Henderson interjected, looking at the external auditor. "Mr. Davies, Miss Chen, perhaps you can elaborate." Mr. Davies, the male auditor, opened a binder. "Miss Sterling, our preliminary findings, based on a comprehensive internal report, indicate a severe conflict of interest regarding OptiStream Solutions. Our records show your maiden name, Veronica Vance, as a primary stakeholder in that entity, receiving payments directly from OmniCorp funds." Ronnie blanched. "That's absurd. I sold my shares years ago. This is a smear campaign. Arthur's doing this because he's threatened." "And Apex Solutions, your brother's company," Miss Chen added, "has been receiving contracts at exorbitant rates, without competitive bidding, and with no demonstrable track record to justify their involvement. This directly violates corporate governance and procurement policies." "My brother's company is excellent," Ronnie protested, her voice rising. "They're innovators. Innovators who were about to take over an entire department for triple the cost, despite having 0 corporate experience," I said, leaning forward slightly. "Innovators whose services would have eliminated 15 jobs, including mine, right when one of our employees has a critical family medical need." "That's a fabrication," she shrieked. "You're making things up to save your own skin." "Are these fabrications, Veronica?" Mr. Henderson asked, sliding a printed copy of my full dossier across the table to her. It was thick. On the top page, clearly visible, was a screenshot of her maiden name linked to OptiStream's corporate registration. Below it, an email detailing her frantic attempts to shred documents after my accidental leak. Then the details of the offshore transfer. She leafed through the pages, her face draining of color with each turn. Her hands trembled. "We also have audio recordings," Emily Thorne, the HR director, added quietly, "of you, Miss Sterling, making threats, attempting to coerce employees, and discussing plans to circumvent financial controls." Ronnie's eyes darted from face to face. The confidence, the arrogance, all of it crumbled, replaced by naked fear. Her jaw hung slightly open. She tried to speak, but only a strangled sound came out. She was trapped. She knew it. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within minutes, Ronnie Sterling was escorted out of OmniCorp's headquarters by security, her personal effects in a cardboard box held by a stone-faced HR rep. The company immediately issued an internal memo announcing her departure due to violations of corporate conduct, followed by a promise of a full internal investigation into operational irregularities. Legal action was initiated the next day. The restructuring proposal involving Apex Solutions was immediately terminated. My department was saved. Not only that, but Mr. Henderson, after seeing my meticulous work, offered me a promotion. He saw not just the auditor, but the calm, calculated strategist. I accepted. Update 2 weeks later, Ronnie Sterling is officially facing criminal charges for corporate fraud and embezzlement. The sheer volume and irrefutable nature of the evidence I compiled left the district attorney's office no choice. All of her personal assets and those of her shell companies have been frozen pending forfeiture. Turns out OptiStream Solutions was also involved in tax evasion. She's lost everything. The quiet ones, the ones who know the systems inside and out, are often the most dangerous. She learned that the hard way. Update 2 months later, Ronnie's boutique consultancy and her brother's company, Apex Solutions, are both under federal investigation for racketeering and money laundering. Her brother and husband are also facing charges. The web of fraud was far more extensive than even I initially realized, but my initial dossier provided the blueprint for investigators. My kid's surgery went perfectly last month. OmniCorp's revised benefits package, which I helped implement as part of my new role, covered everything. My team, we're thriving. We saved the company millions by implementing actual efficiency reforms. Update 6 months later, Ronnie Sterling was convicted on all counts. She's serving a significant sentence in federal prison, no chance of parole for a very long time. Her family is bankrupt, disgraced. OmniCorp is cleaner now, more transparent. As for me, I'm now Director of Financial Integrity, a new position created just for me. My cubicle is still beige, but my office has a window, and I still know every single line item, every budget code, every obscure regulation. But now when I see something rotten, I don't just smell it, I eradicate it completely.